We'll make sure to put that on our YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah. As you can see, it's my first time doing Chris's show. And so Chris, you'll be making garlicky chicken with, there's been a little adjustment to the recipe, right? It's not, what kind of beans are we going to be using tonight?
Using garbanzo beans because they didn't have butter beans, but that's okay.
So garlicky garbanzos. And take it away.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Welcome everybody to Chef Luke Cooks. We're gonna have a lot of fun tonight. This is probably gonna be one of the quickest recipes I've ever done. So be prepared to actually be out by 6 o'clock. It's gonna be amazing. So as Emily so beautifully put, we are gonna be doing some garlic chicken. We're gonna do something really special. We're going to bread it with crispy garlic, which I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before. It's very similar to like those crispy onion peels or shallot peels you might have gotten on like your green bean casserole, but this is garlic. You can usually only get it in Asian grocery stores or other international grocery stores. I don't know if they have it at Kronig's. Hopefully some of you were able to find it. You can also make it yourself by basically just browning garlic like we're gonna do for the beans later. And then, drying it on paper towel. It gets nice and crispy. That's a lot of work though. So I was lucky enough to have bought this. It looks a lot like breadcrumbs, which is really great. And that's what we're gonna use it for. We're gonna use it for breadcrumbs. It's gonna add a lot of really, really intense garlic flavor to our chicken. It's gonna be absolutely beautiful. So as usual, I'm gonna start us off with a little bit of mise en place. So mise en place means everything in its place, which is just a great sort of cooking philosophy that is always worthwhile to follow if possible. I'm just gonna take you a little tour of my mise en place. If you look over there, you see I've got my pans, I've got my the roasting pan, I got some bowls, everything I'm gonna need. And then in front of me here, right where I'm working, I've got all my ingredients. I've got my chicken, my lemons and onions and garlic, got my mayonnaise and Dijon, pretty much everything I'm gonna need for this recipe right in front of me. The corner that I work in my kitchen is also right next to all of my utensils, which is really useful. So that if I do need something, I can quickly grab it, just open the drawer. You'll probably hear that at least once. I always tend to forget something. And I've got most of my utensils I think I'm gonna need right here. Got my oven preheated. So everything is in its place, including the temperature of my oven. And now that our mise en place is set, we can just start cooking and we don't really have to move it all. We can just get it done, put on some good music or tunes, if you're not doing a program like this, and get to work. So I'm just gonna tip you guys down so you can sort of see what I'm doing. And we're gonna start off with probably kind of a little mundane task, but something that's going to be really important later. We're going to drain our beans, and we want to do that as soon as possible. I almost did it before the program, but I just wanted to make sure you guys get a chance to see my new can opener actually working. For a long time, I had a can opener that would like leave a little tab and wouldn't open my cans all the way. And now I have this beautiful, not new, but new to me can opener, and it actually opens the can completely. It's just a beautiful thing. So I'm kind of showing off, but also it's important to do this step right now. If you're cooking along, you're going to want these to drain and get as dry as possible. The drier they are, the better they're going to roast later in the pan. We want to get some nice sort of crispy edges if we can. Again, these are garbanzo beans. The dish is going to be best with a more flat bean, like a lima bean or a butter bean, which are technically the same thing. Lima beans tend to be green. That's crazy. There's a fire engine out back. Cool. It's not for me, I promise. Anyways, lima beans tend to be green, whereas butter beans are usually more processed and come in cans. But they're actually the same plant. They just look a little different because the butter bean has been essentially sort of bleached by the whole process. But they both taste fairly similar. And the real thing that we're looking for with those beans is how flat they are. You could use like gigantes, or I forget exactly how to pronounce that, but so you want to rinse the beans off here. You want to get all that sort of protein from the pan off. You just want a nice dry bean. And what that's going to do for us is later, when we go to put them in the pan with the oil, we're not going to get tons of splatter. And we're also not going to have to waste time cooking them to get the water out. The water will hopefully already have drained out, which means we're just going to be dealing with a sort of nice juicy inside of the bean, and then we're gonna sort of take all the moisture out of the outside of the bean, make some nice crispy edges, hopefully add a lot of flavor, and then all we really have to do is sort of just solidify that flavor with some lemon juice and garlic. It's gonna be great. So those are draining in my sink. We're just gonna let those go to town. I might probably toss them throughout the program as we go. So the next thing on the list is to get our breading ready. We aren't going to really marinate our chicken for that long. The mixture we're putting the chicken in is going to stay on the chicken. It's not getting rinsed off. It's not going to fall off. It's going to be pretty integral to the whole process. So we don't have to worry too much about keeping the chicken in there for a long time, because that marinade is going to be with the chicken when we eventually eat it. So we're just going to actually, it's more of a batter than anything else. So we don't have to worry about marinating it, but we do have to worry about getting our panko brown. So panko is kind of weird. It's a really fabulous little breadcrumb. Really, really great for doing all sorts of fun cooking, and particularly, I find it usually ends up on like seafood for whatever reason. I normally would do fried chicken. If I was actually frying it, I'd use flour. I like flour better. I think you get a nice sort of crispy crust, and it mixes with buttermilk a lot better. For a normal buttermilk batter, which is what I would do. I do buttermilk with like a vinegar hot sauce and a bunch of pepper and paprika and stuff, and then I just dredge that in seasoned flour. It's flour back into the buttermilk and then into the flour again. But for something like this, since we're baking it, I really want to get that crispiness from somewhere, and panko really adds that similar sort of crispiness that you would get from a fried chicken. But you kind of are cheating because it starts crispy. But the big problem is when you add moisture to panko, it doesn't tend to brown. It browns really quickly when it's all by itself, but if you add moisture to it at all, it kind of just stops. So what we're going to do is we're going to pre-brown it in our oven. That way we're still going to get a really nice color, and it's not going to look weird. It's going to blend right in with our garlic. So we're going to do a cup of panko. I'm probably going to do a cup and a third just to make sure. I always hate like when you're breading chicken and you just like run out for like the last piece. So I'm going to do a cup and a third just to be sure. I do have a full 2 pounds of chicken here. So I just want to make sure that I've got enough. Let's see. I'm just going to hold my chicken next to it. So let's see. 1, 2, 3. You know what? I'm just going to do a little more, because like worst case scenario, I have extra breading, and I can use it as like a topper for some mac and cheese. I'd obviously want to cook it because I'm going to have raw chicken in there. But you can use it as a topper. Again, I think I just have too much chicken is what the problem is here. I think, the original recipe is definitely more set up for like 1.5 pounds, and this is 2.2. So that's the smallest one I could find. All right, so we're just going to melt a little bit of butter, and that's just going to help to not only brown this, but also to just add a lot of nice flavor. Really do love butter. It's absolutely delicious, and not exactly the best for you, but that's okay. Everything in moderation. And this whole 2 tablespoons is going to go for this entire meal. So it's really only half a tablespoon, which is you can skip it if you want to. Also, you can dry roast these. It's not going to hurt anybody. So just 30 seconds. We're going to melt that butter. Beautiful. In the meantime, let's go ahead and get our my sort of shallow bowl. You can use something more shallow. I think this is going to work just fine though. I'm just going to measure out my garlic. And so I did up the panko, so I'm just going to up the garlic just a tiny bit as well. This is my 1/3 cup measure. I got this out because I'm going to be using it for the mayonnaise later. And so, the less dishes I can do, the better. So this is I'm just going to kind of use this a bunch. And so we wanted a 1/2 cup of, it was basically supposed to be half as much as the panko. And so I used 6 thirds. So I'm actually just going to use 2/3 for, or rather, was that what I used? I use 1.5 cups, so I'm going to use about 3/4 of a cup, which is going to be, like 2.25 of this. And so there's our beautiful roasted garlic. If you've never seen this stuff before, it's really cool up close. It literally, it just looks like breadcrumbs. It even sounds like breadcrumbs. It tastes really good though. There's a little bit of skin in there too sometimes, just because it's it's made really en masse. But the skin has been sort of fried as well, so you can eat it. You can pick it out if you want to. I'm gonna leave it in there. It looks great. It's gonna be so good. It tastes and smells so garlicky. And yeah, they come in pretty big containers. You can get like massive jugs too. It's absolutely delicious. I love it on baked goods, mac and cheese specifically. It's just a really fabulous accoutrement too. All right, so we've got some melted butter. Beautiful. We're just gonna pour that over our panko nice and even. The butter is just gonna really help it to brown quickly and evenly. A little bit of fat is always helpful. I'm gonna put our black pepper on as well. So you put as much black pepper on as you want, and you can put other stuff on here too if you want. I really want the garlic to come through, so I'm really just trying to keep it simple, just black pepper and butter. But you know, you could put paprika in here, you could put turmeric, you could put, like I said, garlic powder. If you don't have the roasted garlic, would be a good thing to put in. I'm just gonna keep it simple though. Just give that a little shake up. Get those panko covered with the butter. If you see any clumps, just sort of break them up. It's almost kind of like you're making biscuits here. You really want your butter to be evenly distributed, so any clumps, just sort of break them up. They'll get sort of recoated in the butter, and we'll be good to go. This looks great. Give it a shake. Pop it in the oven and set my timer for 2 minutes. This is probably only going to take 4 minutes, so you really want to watch it. Do not burn your panko. It's a sad, sad day when you burn the panko. Cool. So we can put our panko back there. We're good to go. So now we're going to get our chicken in its sort of juice, as it were. There's a lot of different ways you can deal with this, depending. I know there's some really cool techniques for removing the tendon from chicken breasts, chicken tenders. I got tenders, luckily. I think they just processed like a whole bunch of big birds. The breasts were on sale, but they were still fairly expensive. I know they can usually go a lot cheaper. So I just got the tenders because they were actually really, really cheap for tenders. So I'm going to show you a method. I'm not going to actually do this. I like the tendon. I like to have a little bit of extra sort of, what's the word? You know, al dente kind of. Some of these actually might have already had them taken out. Yeah, there we go. And so what you do is you take the tendon, which is this part of the chicken right here. And it doesn't really it's not that bad. These ones aren't that big either, but you want to grasp it in your hands. And you want to put a fork sort of over the top of it like that. And of course, this probably isn't going to work. And then you just want to sort of yank it. I don't really have a good grip on this thing. Come on. Maybe you got to get a pair of pliers in here. So there's not really a lot to hold on to. Usually there's like a much bigger nub at the end. You just kind of want to pull it against the fork, and it pulls right out. Maybe I got it. It's usually a lot easier than this. This is also part of the reason why I don't even bother with this, because it's not really there we go. So then you can see as it sort of just yanks right out. We got the whole tendon right there. I don't have to eat that. That's when it cooks, it's going to get pretty soft anyways. And I also feel like it kind of splits the chicken a little bit, which isn't always ideal. So I'm going to skip it. You feel free to do it for yourself if you want to. It just takes a little bit extra time, but it's really not it's not necessary. Like I said, I like a little bit of extra texture that that it provides. I feel like when I'm eating the chicken tender, you know, I can take a bite in it and it feels like I'm cutting through something with my teeth, which always it makes me feel I don't know. Otherwise, I feel like the whole tender is just a little too soft. But again, you do you. Now you know how to do the fork method. I think TikTok got it famous. In case you guys are all on that. So let's check our breadcrumbs. Still pretty white, which is fine, but definitely starting to get a little crispier, a little more brown. We're really just looking for some color on these so that they don't look pale in comparison to our garlic. Just gonna check my chicken, my temperature. My oven's already down to 420. That's okay though. All right, so we're gonna do 2 more minutes. I think that should be perfect. And we'll get our mix here together. All right, so for the chicken, we're gonna need some mayonnaise. We're gonna do about 1/3 cup of mayonnaise. And again, I'm just gonna go a little bit more just because I do have way more chicken than I had anticipated. But you know, 1/3 cup is gonna be perfect for about 1.5 pounds of chicken. So I'm just gonna go a little bit over the top there. Put that right in there. Let's scrape that. Perfect. And then it calls for a teaspoon of mustard. So, you know, I personally really like mustard. So I'm gonna put a little bit more, but I'm not gonna put too much because I don't really want. I just put a couple little squeezes. You can measure that if you want, but with a teaspoon, it's a pinch, right? So it's just as much as you want to put in there. I do want this to taste like garlic. I don't want it to taste like mustard, and so that's why I'm just gonna put a little bit in there. Because if I put too much, it'll end up as sort of a garlicky, mustardy mess. I'm gonna check these right now, even though the timer hasn't gone off. Okay, they're getting there though. It's back. back bit starting to brown a little bit. Awesome. Shake that up. We'll spin it around. I might need a little bit more. My oven's not incredibly strong, so we're gonna do 1 minute more. Whoops. All right, so garlic. We're gonna just break this apart. We're gonna use this whole bulb today. We're gonna use a couple of the cloves right now, and then we're gonna slice the rest of them later for the beans. So the best way that I have to usually break up a clove is you want to put the root end up towards you at a little bit of an angle with the stem sort of facing away from you, and then you're basically levering the stem by pushing down. And when you do that, the stem sort of pops the whole clove or the whole bulb open, which is what we want. And now normally I'd crush these garlic under my knife before I started slicing them, but I do want to do sliced garlic. I want like nice big pieces that you can see. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to top the tip with my knife, and then I'm going to peel it from there. That way I'll have nice full cloves of garlic and not something that's been sort of smashed in half. Some of these are already open, which is nice, but I'm just popping the tip off, which is going to give me access to the clove for peeling. So we're going to do that. Perfect. This smells like it's done. Oh, yeah. See, so you can see starting to get a little brown at the edges, still a little bit in the center could use. So I'm just going to give it a little stir and probably pop it back in there just for like a hot second, a literal hot second, 30 seconds maybe. I think we're pretty much there though. And it's, you know, it's getting brown at the edges first. So try and get some of your center stuff out to the edges. Pop her back in there, 30 seconds. Awesome. All right, so just keep topping this garlic here, and we'll peel it all. Beautiful. I absolutely love garlic. I don't know if you guys love garlic or not. This recipe is it's meant to be sort of a spring inspiration. Obviously, lima beans are just sort of starting to come into season. You know, spring chicken, as they say, is not too bad of a dish. And then garlic is starting to sort of come up. You know, usually you're not really looking at garlic scapes at this point, but we're getting there. We're getting into spring and summer, and some some warmer climates. We're definitely starting to see green garlic, which is a really fabulous thing. So that looks perfect. It's nice and brown, and it's going to brown a little bit more in the oven, but it's not going to brown anywhere near as much as it just did right now if we just put it on the chicken. So we'll just let that cool down real quick before we mix it with our garlic and get our batter. All right, so let's just finish up with this garlic. So we're just going to go ahead and peel. I'm peeling all the garlic now just so I'm ready for later. And I'm going to try and save these really big ones because I do want to, it's a lot easier to mince garlic. And by mince, I mean like really, really tiny, like almost like a Brunoise, like we're going to do with the onion. It's much easier to do that if it's a big piece of garlic. So we're just going to go ahead and peel this up. Peeling garlic is an interesting task. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. I've seen people do it in bowls. You put them in between metal bowls and shake them really violently, and the peels eventually just sort of get ripped off. A lot of different ways. I like to do it by hand. You get kind of sticky and your fingers smell like garlic, which is fabulous. Let's just take a peek at the chat while I'm doing this, see if I missed anything. Oh yeah, paper towel to hold the tenon. That's a great idea. I am messing this clove up. Come on. This is the only problem. You know, when you crush it, it just feels so easy. But if you really want to keep the garlic intact, it does make your job a little bit harder. Next episode, peeling garlic with Chris. 18 different methods. Beautiful. There we go. Now we're getting to a little bit of a group. I think it was just that one clove was being a pain in the butt. Awesome. Come on, bucko. You have friends with tiny hands. This is the time to get them involved in the process. Say, hey, buddy, earn your keep for dinner. Time to peel garlic. I do find that smaller fingers tend to get a little bit easier job of this, just because the garlic cloves themselves are so small. Not this guy though. This is a double. Nice. Garlic cloves are so fun. It's the seed and the food all in one. You know, you pop one of these in the ground, kind of like a potato, it might just grow a whole new garlic plant. But we eat it because it's delicious. Bulbs in general, I guess, they're bulbs, they're not seeds, but it's a similar experience, you know. All right, getting there. Now, some of you may have been smart and just bought garlic. That's what I'm talking about. Nothing wrong with using the cheater garlic. The real reason for these is going to become apparent later when we're doing the beans. Again, I'm using garbanzo beans today, so it's not going to be as visually appealing, but that nice sort of flat look of the slices of garlic next to the butter beans or the lima beans is really going to be sort of pleasing. It's very flat. It acts like it invokes sort of the idea of a plate, which is good because we're using it sort of as a bed for the chicken when we go to plate this later. And so the garbanzo beans are going to kind of clash with that a little bit, but that's okay. They're still going to taste really good. And honestly, at the end of the day, you may eat with your eyes first, but the flavor is the most important part of the experience. Oh, garlic. Almost done, guys. We got one more left. Should have recruited somebody to do this for me. And you know, sometimes you just got to take a chunk out of it and get it out of there. You won't really see it when you do the slices. The important thing is that it's big enough that we can slice it nice and pretty. Awesome. Oh my God, it smells so good.
Of course, I think we have a question down here. The question is when you buy the peeled garlic, sometimes it's a little bit smaller pieces, right?
Awesome.
They
Yeah.
usually don't have like the really big cloves always.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, those will work just fine. The real thing that we're looking for is, again, that sort of flatness. What you can do, and I'll show you in a second, actually, once I get this cleaned up. What you can do if you have smaller cloves is just cut them a different way. So give my beans a little shake here. If you guys are doing this at home, make sure you give your beans a little shake, get them draining. So what I would normally do if I was using a nice big pieces of garlic, which is what I'm hoping to do, is I would slice them this way, boop, 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 right? So there's the long side. Oh, you know what? Let me wipe this off. It's a little greasy. See if we can get, that's much better. Whew. So normally I would cut it, just having some trouble focus because of the light. I'd cut it this way, right? But if you've got smaller pieces, just cut it this way, cut it the long way. So I'll just show you real quick sort of the difference. So what we're going to be looking for later is something like that, right? But if you have smaller pieces of garlic, just, you know, take the piece like this, hold it like this, and do something more like that, right? See the difference? One of them you could see is sort of like more of a cross section, and one of them is more of like a long section. But that way you just want something that's big enough that it's gonna look similar to the beans. And so as long as they're big enough for that, you'll be fine. And if you're concerned about you know, dicing the garlic, don't worry too much about the size. You can always just dice the garlic by going over it a lot of times. Just keep chopping. The only reason you want a big piece is so you can do the cuts necessary to do essentially a Brunoise. And so we're going to do that right now, actually. And a Brunoise cut is what you do is you take your piece right here, anything sort of globular. We're going to do this with an onion as well. And you want to cut this way a bunch of times, and then you're going to cut down to make sticks, and then you're going to cut across to make your Brunoise. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. Anytime you're cutting like this, you want to have your palm nice and concave out. You're going to put your thing at the lowest point right here so that if you do miss, you don't cut yourself. And so as you can see, I sort of cut the garlic into a bunch of little planks. Hopefully you can see that. And then we're going to go from that. We're going to cut down into a bunch of sticks. And then from there, we're just going to shave off as thin as we can. And we're going to end up with a nice dice, right? So nice little cubes. That's going to go right into our chicken. So we're going to do that with 2 of these big ones. Let's use the rest of this big one. This is called a Brunoise, which is French for very tiny. I'm sure it has a proper name, a proper French translation, but very tiny is basically what it means. Very, very, very small. We usually use it for dishes where you want the flavor of an item, but you don't want the texture. And so for our chicken, obviously, we really want it to taste like garlic, but we don't want big chunks of garlic sort of, sticking to the outside of our fried chicken or our baked chicken. With the beans, on the other hand, we want those big chunks of garlic, and so we're gonna actively be searching for that. So I'm just gonna leave those there for now. We're gonna pop over here to our lemon, which is sort of the last part of this experience, and we're gonna zest it now. We're gonna need the zest later, and it's a pain to zest a lemon after you cut it in half. So we're just gonna squeeze it a little bit. Ooh, this thing's juicy. So when you pick out citrus, you generally want to do it by weight. You want the item that you're looking for to weigh more than it looks like it should weigh. You should pick it up and give it a little heft, and it should feel heavy for its size. And that's usually how you can tell you've got a really good and juicy piece of citrus. So I'm just going to use this little microplane right here, and I'm going to pull. A lot of people will use it like this, and you could do that if you want, but I really like to just pull the zest off and use the edges of this to sort of act as a little guard. I just find it works a lot easier. It's much easier on my wrists, and in general, just much easier on my day-to-day life. So if you can, do things the easy way, which is what I'm doing right now. This is an insanely juicy lemon. It's just like exploding in my hands. I did not need to squish it like that. The reason you squish it like that is so that when you go to juice it, most of the polyps that are in there, which are the little like sort of seed-bearing cells, I guess, will crush. And that way, when you go to juice it, most of the work has already been done for you, and it'll sort of just come out a lot more juicy. Oh yeah, this guy is insanely juicy. Oh, that smells so good. All right, beautiful. So we're just gonna save that there. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this in half. Ooh, well, there's not even any seeds in here. Crazy. I picked like the best lemon in the whole supermarket. There's no seeds. Usually limes don't have seeds, but it's not an often time that you see a lemon without seeds. So this is pretty sweet, juicy and seedless. All right, beautiful. So we've got about a third cup of mayonnaise, about a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. We've got 2 cloves of garlic and half a juice of the lemon. And so that's our sort of our batter, if you will. We're just gonna mix the chicken up in that, get it all nice and coated. And again, we don't really need to let it quote unquote marinate for very long, because this is all gonna end up in the dish. Important note as well, in the recipe, it does say you can use egg whites instead of mayonnaise. That is totally acceptable. If I was using egg whites instead of mayonnaise, I would mix them in with the lemon, garlic, and mixing them with the lemon and garlic before I put the chicken in there. I give them a good whisk, almost to like emulsify them a little bit, and then I mix it up. It just makes it easier. Make sure the protein is distributed evenly with the vinegar, or in this case the lemon juice. Mayonnaise already is an emulsification, so we don't have to worry about it as much in this case. But if you're making your own, you want to sort of whisk it a little bit before you put the chicken in there. So this looks really great. It looks absolutely fabulous, in fact. So our breadcrumbs are nice and cool. We're just going to put those in with the garlic here. Make our breading. Get some ASMR for you right there. Get some turmeric roasted veggies on these chicken, and they have been forever orange since. I do love turmeric. Turmeric and black pepper is just, oh, what a fabulous combo. All right, beautiful. Let's take a quick peek down here. Cutting technique, thank you. That's beautiful. Perfect, awesome. All right, so here's our breadcrumb mixture. We're just gonna shake that up a little bit. And I'm just sort of doing a classic toss here. You do this with a saute pan as well. And what you want to do is you want to sort of push the product away from you. And you want to just sort of lift up while pulling back toward yourself. And the idea is you want the momentum to be all the way back towards yourself before the product hits the edge of whatever is in. That way, so you get it heading upwards, but you've given it all the momentum to come back at you. And if you do that properly, it won't spill. And it's worth practicing. I like practicing with a bowl. Honestly, doing it with a bowl is how I learned to do it with a pan. So just get a nice deep bowl that you're not too worried about, and just practice this one day. It might change your saute game forever. So that's nice and mixed together. It looks absolutely beautiful. Just give it a little taste. It's nice and crispy, super crunchy. And it just tastes like garlic. Oh yeah. Okay. So our oven is already preheated. We're good to go. We got our breading, we got our chicken. I'm gonna take our oven pan here, same one that I used for the breadcrumbs. I'm gonna put a little rack on top of it. What that's gonna do is gonna raise the chicken, make sure we cook both sides at once. It's gonna keep them really nice and crispy, which is exactly what we're looking for here. Roll up your sleeves, and we're just gonna do these one at a time. Pretty impossible to do this without getting messy. You can use a fork if you want. I'm gonna probably use my hands, but we'll see how a fork goes. I already know I'm gonna use my hands. We'll use a fork to get them in there, and then we'll see how it goes. All right, so forks in there, and I think I'm just gonna do a little bit of that tossing method I was telling you about earlier with you guys, and then give it a little toss about in here. You really just want to get it nice and crispy, and then what I'll do is I'll just grab a lot of the breading around it and just sort of give it a little squeeze, and a nice gentle shake, and we've got a nice little breaded crisp chicken tender. We're just gonna pop that right on our sheet pan. And the mayonnaise is going to cook in the oven and it's going to solidify because there are eggs in there, right? So that's going to make a really nice sort of crust and give a lot of flavor. So that just is what we got there. Beautiful. Pop that on there as well. And I'm doing whole tenders. These tenders are a lot bigger than I would normally have used for this. If you were doing breast meat and you were cutting it up, I would cut them probably a little smaller than this, but chicken cooks really fast, so I'm not too worried about its cook time. I'm gonna lay them on there. Let's get some more in here. Oh, it smells so good. I can't wait to put them in the oven. Okay, do a little shaky shake. And then a little squeeze action. I just want to get it all in those little nooks and crannies too. Actually, let's do it this way. See? Oh my God, I'm gonna have too much breading. I always do this. I always like freak out that I'm not gonna have enough of something, so then I make extra, and then I have too much, which is better than not having enough, honestly. Let's see. Cool. We'll do one more in this batch and then two for the last one. If you were using egg whites for this too, you could always add a little bit of extra, white vinegar in there or more lemon juice if that's something you really like. The acidity of the mayonnaise definitely is going to add some really unique flavor compounds to this. So, if that's something that you crave, that you desire, do it. I don't want to say just because you're taking the potentially more healthy route that you should sacrifice flavor. Vinegar doesn't have any calories. It's really beautiful for a flavoring agent. It's basically just acid, which is just such a great little thing. So, yeah, pop some vinegar in there. Pop some extra lemon juice if you do want to. White vinegar would work just fine as well, though. This is the one that we took the tendon out of. See how it's in half? Oh well. All right, let's see. I think I am gonna need to make these a little bit tighter on here. There's our last two. Beautiful. This can go right there. I think I would have been like just perfect if I had followed the recipe on these breadcrumbs. But I'm happy to have extra. Like I said, they're going to go right on top of some mac and cheese later in the week, and nobody's going to be sad about that. All right, one more on there. And then I got to squeeze this last one on here somewhere. Let's see if I do. Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Quick little rinse off here. That's another thing, part of mise en place as well, is have a nice towel that you can use. Two if you want, but I usually just use one thick one. That way I can wipe my hands on it and still use it in the oven as well. But don't use it if it's wet. That is a bad idea. All right, so I got my chicken on my rack, looking beautiful, looking breaded. I'm gonna pop that in the oven, set my timer for 15 minutes, and we're gonna start cooking the beans. Go ahead and I'm actually gonna set my timer for 10 minutes and I'll flip them. Not flip them, but like spin them. So my oven's weird, so I'm just gonna reset it right now. Yes, it's down to 435. And then cancel timer, 10 minutes. Awesome. So we got a 10-minute timer. We're gonna go ahead and start cooking our beans. So I'm actually gonna use this one right here. It'll be fine. So just gonna get my fan hot. For those of you who don't know, my stove is completely broken. It only does hot and off. So we're gonna cook like crazy right now. I would very much recommend not doing it the way I'm about to do it. Use your temperature control if you have access to it. I simply don't have access to temperature control. So I'm doing it sort of old school style, hearth style, if you will, which would be, without really a lot of temperature control. So we're just gonna heat this up as high as it goes. I'm gonna turn it off. We're gonna let the food kind of cool it down as it cooks, and then we're just gonna keep going. So we are going to slice up our garlic and our onion. Onion wants to be Brunoise because onion we want for flavor, but we don't want for texture. Garlic we want for texture. And so that's why we are brunoising the onion and we are slicing the garlic. So just what I did there is I kept the root end on. I don't know if you guys saw that or not. The reason I'm doing that is it's going to make the brunoise technique a lot easier. If you don't do that, your onion peels tend to slip all over the place. It's a complete mess. I don't recommend doing it. So leave the root on there. It's going to make your life so much easier for this next step. I'm just going to take this off too. Okay. All right, sweet. We'll wipe down here, get those skins away. All right, so Brunoise, we're going to see it on a much bigger thing now. This will make it a little bit easier, hopefully. And so what you're going to do is you're going to cut the onion this way a bunch of times, and we're going to stop about this deep in before we get to the actual root. And what that's going to do is it's going to let the root hold it all together. So that's going to be our first move. Again, keep your fingers out of the way. We're going to come through here, and you're really just like sort of, it's like you're slicing it, but you're not slicing all the way through. And so you want to do quite a few cuts because you really do want it to be nice and small. Just remember not to go all the way through. And the onion's already kind of cut. It cuts itself sort of, it's got its layers. But one of the big things you run into when you're trying to cut onions small like this is this little ridge right here. So one part of the reason why we cut in like this is it cuts that ridge into small pieces. So when we go to cut down on it, which we're going to do right now, we don't have this big sort of piece right there just in the way. So this is getting nice and hot. Awesome. So now we're going to cut down. And again, because we left the root on, we're going to continue to not go through all the way to the root. And that's going to help keep this whole thing together. And we're just going to go all the way through. We're going to we basically sort of julienne this onion at this point, but we're going to sort of take that to the next level, and we're going to dice it after this. Take your time. You don't have to go as fast as me. I'm not even going that fast, but some of the chefs I've worked with, it's crazy how fast they chop. I just I'm not into it. I like taking my time. I like the feel of things. So we're going to get something about what sort of has fallen off here. So this is really hot. That's nice. I'm just going to turn that off. Now we're going to go for the most important part. We're going to basically sort of shave this off as thin as we can so that we get a really nice small dice. Let me just take this down a little bit so you guys get a better view there. It's really fun just watching it sort of come off the end. Brunoise. Turn the fan on. So I learned how to do this at the last fancy restaurant I worked at. We did it quite a lot for different sort of sauces, but we also did it for our mignonette, which is a French, Italian is French, I think. A French sort of, it's just sherry vinegar, black pepper, toasted black pepper. We did black pepper and bay leaves, and then and shallots. And you let that sort of marinate, and then you serve it with oysters classically, but you can serve it with a lot of different things. But it is very, very important that you put black pepper in there. I forgot black pepper one time, and my chef got very angry because apparently mignonette needs black pepper or something like that. So it kind of has to have its name in it. This fan is very loud today. I'm gonna turn it off. I don't think we're gonna actually need it. All right, beautiful. So here's my onions. Beautiful. Just gonna put those to the side, and those are gonna cook down quite a lot. They're gonna basically become nothing. So I've got some of my garlic here already sliced. We're just gonna go ahead and slice the rest of it. I'll do these probably like 3 at a time. Just want to line them up so the sort of curved spots are all together. Yeah, it looks good. And then you're just going to slice them as thin as you can. Don't get like too worried about how thin you slice them. You just want them to be sliced so that you can see them. That's really what you're going for here. You want them to have some texture and have some form. Don't worry too much about it. We're not in fancy restaurants, and even if we were, it's totally fine. No one's going to be looking at your garlic that closely, hopefully. You won't be looking at your plate that closely at all. They'll just be shoving it in their face and saying, "Oh my God, how'd you make this so good?" And you can tell them you learned from me. All right, beautiful. Lots of garlic, as I said. This is a celebration of garlic we're having today. So do not skimp. Unless you don't like garlic. If you don't like garlic, just skip it. Skip it in this whole dish. Use normal panko. Don't put any in the breading. It's totally fine. I do not judge based off of what people like. I just want to know what it is. Much better to figure out and provide what people like for them than to try and convince them to like what you like. Good enough. All right, beautiful. So lots of garlic. Let's go ahead and get that browning. My pan's probably still really hot. I'm gonna put quite a lot of oil in here just because I don't want anything bad to happen to my garlic. And this pan, you know, my stove's kind of whack, like I said. It's not exactly ideal. So because of that, I'm gonna put some put a decent amount of oil in there just to help protect my garlic, but you shouldn't need quite that much if you have a stove that will actually go to medium low. So we're just gonna put that in there. We're gonna shake it up so it's got a lot of nice surface area. Oh, it instantly smells amazing. And we're just looking for brown edges here, just brown edges. We just wanna get some flavor in there, but we're not going for as crispy as it would be if we were making, you know, crispy garlic. Just brown edges, and then we're gonna sort of stop that cooking process by adding in the onions. And I can already sort of hear that this is getting a little bit, you know, cold. So I'm gonna go ahead and just turn my heat back on. And again, this is my own special cooking technique. All right, and just shake our beans again, make sure we get all that moisture out. Getting there. They're pretty dry actually, which is nice. Shake them up, get them spread out again. Have a nice, that's good. We got some nice crispiness already starting to happen. Edges are getting brown. That's exactly what we want. So good. All right, beautiful. We've got everything we need here for later. Hey, there's our timer. Awesome. Well, that's not my timer. That's my oven. My timer is 2.5 minutes away. That's from a 10-minute timer, so we'll probably have 5 minutes after that. Awesome. So my garlic's starting to get brown at the edges. Hopefully you guys can see that. This is good. I don't want to go too much further than this. I do really like brown garlic, but I don't like burnt garlic. And so this is going to spend some more time in the pan, so we're just going to be fine with it. I'm going to go ahead and pop my onion in there. And that's going to drop the temp pretty fast. Go ahead and mix that in. Now, again, if you have temperature control at your house, this is where you turn it down and take a good amount of time to caramelize this onion. Really get a lot of nice flavor in there. We're going to do something similar to that, but it's not going to be ideal. You really do want to cook this at a lower temperature, but again, I'm going to be kind of doing this up and down. You're really trying to get a lot of moisture out of the onions. You want to get some color on them as well. You're not going to do a full caramelize, but you know, we're gonna work with it. Cool. So I'm just gonna let that hang. I'm gonna let it catch a little bit more heat before I turn it down. Let's see. I'm just gonna take a peek here. Feeling garlic. Can the onion? Yeah, I don't know exactly what you mean by a tomato holder. I'm thinking it looks like it's got like little fingers you like stab in. Is that what you're talking about? And it kind of like works as like a knife guard almost. I've never actually used an onion tomato holder. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's what I thought it was. But yeah, that would work great, honestly. And part of the reason why they have the tines like that is so you can put your knife in between the holes and make sure your slices are uniform. But I don't think they make them small enough to do like a Brunoise. But you could definitely shove it in there just so you don't have to have your hands in the way. That'll keep you, you know, nice and protected, which is good. All right, cool. I'm gonna turn this down. Oh yeah. So the classic way of doing a caramelize is a nice slow browning of the sugars. What we are doing here, because of my limited sort of cooking capabilities is we're doing more of a browning and then dissolving. So what that is you're getting a nice sort of brown side, almost like you would with a soup, like how you get a fond in the bottom of the pan. You're getting a fond on the side of one of your vegetables, and then you stir it back in with the rest of the vegetables. It mixes with the water, and that fond dissolves off of the vegetable and helps create a sort of brown color and flavor. So it's kind of like a quick caramelize. Normally, it would happen from sort of the inside out over a long period of time, but just the way we're doing it right now, it's more of like a sear, or like I'm sure there's a term for the technique, but you know, I learned in my kitchen, not exactly in like a big kitchen, so I often don't have terms for stuff like that. But for me, it's like a brown and dissolve technique, right? So you're adding the color pretty rapidly, and then you're letting the moisture from the dish help to sort of dissolve it. And what you get is something that looks a little bit more like this. You know, it's nice and brown onions. It's browned onions, but like, you know, they're still fairly white and translucent in the middle. And we're gonna let them cook for a little bit longer, so we're not too worried about it right now. I know that's my timer. Let's check on this chicken. Oh yeah. Oh, it looks so good. And it's browning up really nicely because we did, you know, sort of pre-brown those crouton or those panko. So it's actually getting some really nice brown on the edges. We're just gonna reset this. And I'm gonna go ahead and do my timer for 5 minutes, and we'll temp them after that and see how we're doing. Because you really don't want to cook chicken much above 165. It just gets dry. And so we are gonna try and hit 165 exactly. That would be ideal. All right, let's see how these onions are doing. Doing really good. Looking so beautiful. So again, you can really spend as much time in these as you want. I am doing sort of the quick method here, but you could let these go until they were basically like an onion paste. And I would not think any worse of you. They act as a really good sort of mix, actually. Okay, cool. So again, another really great reason why I like being where I'm at in my kitchen is I can have an idea and I can immediately activate it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this bowl. I'm actually going to mix the herbs, the lemon juice, and the lemon zest in with these onions once I take them off the stove. Instead of trying to add them all at once from different places, I'm just going to have them ready to go so I can just pop them right in the beans right when I want to glaze them, because we're basically glazing the beans here. We're going to have the beans going pretty hot. They're going to be getting nice and crispy on the edges and developing some nice caramelization. And then we're going to basically stop that cooking process by adding in a liquid, and that's going to really sort of like, it's going to deglaze the pan, but it's also going to glaze the beans as the moisture from the liquid, from the lemon juice evaporates. All of the sugars from the zest and the onions and everything is going to be left behind on our beans, which is going to make them really tasty and delicious. And so you could also put some salt in there if you want. I've been skipping salt this whole meal just because of my own personal preference, but beautiful, cool. Just checking on the messages and checking on time. We're doing pretty good on time. I think we're gonna pop right in there. I'm gonna show you guys a couple. They're not really sauces so much. It's really just gonna be mayonnaise mixed some things, but it's just gonna be the things I'm gonna eat this with tonight. QP mayo is really fun. If you were already at an Asian grocery store, hopefully you pick some up with your crispy garlic. It's absolutely delicious. There's a lot more eggs in it, so it's really thick. We're just going to use, you know, normal basic mayo for this, but I really like a mayo sauce, something kind of sweet, and mayonnaise is really nice for chicken. I also just like ketchup, honestly, but I'm not going to make like a you know, you could do like ketchup relish and mayonnaise is kind of like a, you know, Thousand Island. That's a really great dip as well. I really love that on a Reuben, for instance. But I've got a couple things that I'm going to make some little sauces. They'll be nice and bright. You know, you want like the reason I like mayonnaise is it's kind of bright. You know, if you add things to it. I don't really like ranch necessarily. Nothing against ranch, but for chicken, I feel like I want it to be brighter color-wise. You know, so I like to add something like a balsamic vinegar glaze or a hot sauce. And you'll see when we get there. I'm gonna make a couple little sauces for us. So, all right, these onions are done. I'm gonna call them done at least. They're nice and brown. They're completely cooked through. It looks sort of translucent apart from the garlic. So we're gonna go ahead and take this out of the pan, get our pan ready for our beans. We've also seasoned this pan right now. You know, by cooking the onions in there, the pan kind of got seasoned. And all the oil that's left behind in there is gonna have that really wonderful onion and garlic flavor. It's gonna be absolutely delicious. All right. Go ahead and crank this back up again. Get that nice and hot. Pop some oil in there. We're gonna start cooking our beans. So I'm actually kind of happy that we're using garbanzo beans. I really, like I said, I really like beans. I like butter beans. I really like the way that they look. But garbanzo beans are one of the best types of beans you can eat for the planet. It's a relatively low impact for growing. They have an amazing nutritional profile. You know, for beans, they're beans. So there's not a lot in them in the first place apart from protein. But they don't really, you know, they don't take a ton of water like almonds or anything like that. They're just a really nice thing, and they're fairly low impact on the environment. So if you want to do something good for your body and for the world, eat more garbanzo beans, or don't, do whatever you want, you know. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pop the zest in with these onions right now. Just get that, just so I can start cleaning up. You could save the zest. You know, if you had more than one lemon, you really wanted to go lemon crazy, you could put some of the zest in with the with mayonnaise, and that would make a really good sauce as well. We're going to use our miraculous seedless lemon. I don't know if I will ever see a seedless lemon again in my life. Put that in there as well. Let's get nice and hot. All right, perfect. Let's turn that off. Put our beans in there. And as you can hear, there was obviously still some moisture in there, but we're going to cook that off real quick. So just going to toss these, get them coated in that oil. And the more you stir it like this, the more moisture that can get out, which is what we want. We want to get that moisture out. And then just spread them out. If you have a smaller pan, do this in batches, do 1 can at a time, but this is the perfect size pan for 2 cans. I'll turn that heat back on. My timer just went off for the chicken. Awesome. I'm actually going to turn that off. I'm just going to let it sit. Be patient, like I said. Let's tempt this chicken. Oh, yeah. I hear you. Ooh. Oh, man, that looks so good. All right, I'm just going to show you this. Look at those things. Oh, they're beautiful. They're getting a little crispy, which is exactly what we're looking for. I can see inside that they're getting, you know, the chicken itself is cooking. So I'm just going to take one of the thicker ones here. I'm going to take a nice internal temp. Check multiple ones. You don't want to, like, you know, find one that's done and the rest of them still aren't. So these guys are starting to pop. I like it. Okay, I'm getting about 150, which, like, technically, if you're not, you know, if you're not a health inspector, you can eat chicken at that. You can eat chicken raw if you really want to. Carpaccio chicken is like kind of a really fun thing to do if you've never done it before. So we're just gonna go for a couple more minutes. Timer, do 3 minutes. All right, so these have started to pop, which makes me think that they're getting a little bit of color on them, and they certainly are. Awesome. So we're just going to turn this heat back on, lay them out nice and flat, and let them get some nice brown sides. If this was butter beans, obviously, what I'd be doing is I'd be making sure all the flat sides were nice and flat, plenty of surface area touching, and I'd let them sit for probably a little bit longer too, just because butter beans have a lot more internal volume, and so you know, you really need to cook that moisture out. But garbanzo beans tend to dehydrate pretty quick. If you've never made it before, I highly suggest looking up a recipe for like garbanzo croutons. You put them in the oven at a really low temperature and they dehydrate and they get nice and crispy. They're so delicious. They're like just blowing up over here. But hey, that's okay. We're gonna be fine. We're gonna make popcorn. So I'm gonna use, for herbs, I'm gonna use some chives. These are dehydrated from my mother-in-law's garden. And I'm gonna go probably more heavy than I did in the recipe. That was probably a tablespoon maybe. And I'm gonna pop some thyme in there as well. I really like thyme just in general. I know it wasn't on the list of things, but I just saw it while I was looking for my oregano. Couldn't find my oregano, so I'm just gonna use a little bit of thyme. I'll probably just like a teaspoon of thyme, just enough. It adds like a really nice deep flavor. It adds time, you know, there's a big joke about thyme. They sound the same, they're spelled different, but the herb thyme does tend to add a flavor that is fairly similar to the passage of time and what that would sort of add to the dish. Spend time on it, you will often get a similar experience than if you just put time in it. So it's a really nice deep flavor that often comes from slower cooking, but you can cheat by just putting it right in there. Get ourselves all set up over here for making some sauces. That is just popping. I think I'm just gonna have to stir that again. I don't know if I'm gonna get great browning on this just because, I don't know, that's doing good. That's doing really good. Oh yeah. As you can see, I got a nice little brown edge on one of those, and that's what you're going for. You want it to like brown like that, nice skin. It's still gonna be super wet and soft. Not gonna get crispy so much, but you want that flavor. You want that brown flavor. Tasty. And at this point, you could add some salt in there if you wanted to. Any other dry ingredients right into this onion mixture here. I think this is going to be just ducky. 10 seconds, beautiful. I'm going to turn my heat off over here so I don't burn them. Let's go in that oven, double check my temps here. Oh, it smells so good, looks so good. It feels a lot firmer. I think it might be done. Oh. Awesome. Cool. Just check one more just to be sure. I'm gonna go like 1 more minute. I've just never cooked with this particular chicken before, so I don't want to go too low. They're at 158, which would normally be good. I'd get a good carryover cook, but I just don't know. I just don't know. You know, I don't know where this chicken came from, so I want to just go and make sure I get that temperature exactly and get it nice and hot. All right, so these beans are looking almost perfect. You know, all of them have at least one side that is nice and crispy like that, which is what we want. We're going to go ahead and we are going to deglaze them. Put all that in there with the lemon juice. You can stir it in. Do a little tossing action. You'll hear it. It gets nice and sizzly. That's that lemon juice starting to cook off. It's coating these beans. Absolutely delicious. Am I like, why is it so dark in here? Boop. Wow. Sorry about that. Should have had it better lit from the beginning. Ooh, that looks so much nicer. So there we go. Those are beans are done. So just take a look at that. It's really nice. There's some nice garbanzo beans. There's onions in there, but you can't really see that there's onions in there, but you can see that there's garlic slices. I think you can see one right there and there. The beans have a nice herb coating. They smell like lemon, but they're going to taste like garlic. Really beautiful. Very, very excited. Yes, found my bowl, by the way, everybody. Very excited. This is my favorite bowl that I was going to use for those shrimp and grits the other day. I couldn't find. Very happy to have it back. We're going to go ahead and plate on that tonight. I'm going to take that chicken out. That's definitely done now. And I'm just going to let this cool for a second while I make up some sauces. All right, great. So let's make a couple sauces, just some fun little dips. Yeah. Cool. So for all of these, we're going to use a mayo base, like I said. I really like mayo. So we're just going to take like, you know, 1/4 cup of mayonnaise, maybe. Nice big fat tablespoon, 2 tablespoons. And you can do this with pretty much anything you like that you like, you know. It can be It can just be herbs and make sort of more like a ranch. It can be, you know, exactly what I'm doing. It can be absolutely anything you want, but for me, I really like a mayonnaise as a base, and then I like to add something that's got some sort of pizzazz, something that's sort of my flavor. Usually, it's something it's more vinegar, but it can be pretty much anything. Like I said, ketchup would have been really good. Ketchup and pickle relish, and mayo is going to get you kind of like a Thousand Island sort of thing. But we're going to keep it simple here. I got one of my really great friends dropped me off some of this. I don't know if you've ever seen it before. It's called Truff, and it's truffle hot sauce. They have 3 different types. They have the black, they have red, and they have white. The white one's incredibly expensive. The black one is sort of very focused on the black truffle that it makes it up. And the red one here, it has black truffle in it, but is really focused on the chilies, which is good because I like chilies. Truffles are cool, don't get me wrong, but I like chili a lot more. So we're gonna make one of them into a black truffle. Oh, it smells so good. I want you guys to smell it. Just get your noses in there. It smells like truffles, but really forward heavy with the chili sauce. And so let's see. We did a 1/4 cup of mayonnaise. So I'm gonna do a tablespoon of the hot sauce. What that's gonna do is it's gonna, oh, that's really good. It's gonna give me that flavor of the hot sauce, but it's gonna sort of model it with the mayonnaise. We're just gonna stir that up. Really, really simple. Like I said, I'm not going crazy here. I'm just trying to make something taste good. Ooh, that's super spicy. Oh my gosh, amazing. They really are focusing on the chilies. So we've got this really beautiful color. Give it a little taste. It's good. I taste. Oh, that's really, really good. I didn't really do anything. You know, I just literally took mayonnaise and added something to it. It's simple. It's supposed to be simple. All right. So the next one we're gonna do is we're gonna do this. Same friend brought me chili infused balsamic glaze. So I really love balsamic in general with mayonnaise. I think it's one of my favorite sort of flavor combos, right up there with like sweet chili and cream cheese, which is an absolutely delicious thing if you've never tried it before. Or hot pepper jelly and cream cheese, also good. So we're just gonna go ahead and we're going to pop this in there. And again, we're gonna do about a tablespoon. Probably should have tried this first. Oh no, I knew what I was messing with. We're gonna do about a tablespoon. We're gonna mix that in. Might add a little more too. Yeah, I think I'm gonna add a little more. You can already tell. We're looking for sort of like a darker brown, balsamic-y sort of vibe. And with this one, I would maybe put a little bit of herbs in there too, if you wanted to. Again, nice little sort of balsamic-y brown. Oh, that's so good. That's gonna be so good on the chicken too. And the last one, we're gonna take that Dijon we had earlier. We're gonna do about 2 tablespoons of Dijon. And we're gonna use some maple syrup. Oh no. I can't find my maple syrup. I usually keep it in the fridge right here. Oh, well, you know what we're gonna do? I've got this like really, really sweet honey mustard, and I'm actually just gonna use that because this honey mustard is actually too sweet. So I'm gonna use that as my sort of sweetener. That's just gonna sort of double down on the mustard flavor. And we're just gonna mix that up. And again, you're really just mixing things into mayonnaise. I know it's like kind of basic to be doing, but you know, flavor combos can be hard sometimes, and sometimes it's really just like about finding what you like. And you know, something as simple as this can really just like be so many different things. I mean, I have 3 different sauces here, and it took me, you know, 5 minutes, and they're all going to add a really unique thing to this dish. They're all going to work really well with not only the chicken but the beans. This one's that honey mustard. Absolutely delicious. Oh yeah, it's really good. Okay, I'm going to use the spoon. And then so what you can do, if you got your friends over, you know, you can put all the sauces out for them to dip themselves. Or if it's just like you and your sweetie, you can make a little bit of a plate for yourselves. Take a nice little spoon of our beans. We're just gonna pop those in one corner over here. And again, I usually try and cook for about 4 people. So when you're portioning out, go for that. And then you're gonna take some of these beautiful chicken tenders. You're just gonna plop them along right on the beans. Maybe one more on top just for good measure. And then if you want to get kind of fancy with it, you can just take a little bit of this sauce and make like a little trifecta sort of dipping extravaganza on the plate. You know, it's nothing too fancy. You can hit it with little chives if you want after. Just like, you know, chives make everything fancy. In case you guys didn't know that. Just a little bit of chives over the top. Bam, fancy. And there we have our finished garlic chicken dish. It's a garlic breaded baked chicken with some nice garlicky beans under there. 3 different dipping sauces. You can use pretty much anything you want. But there we have it. You can take if we missed any questions. Yeah, recipes out. Awesome.
We had one question about using the grill to cook the beans, which I thought was kind of a good idea. Maybe get like a good smoky flavor, like on a pan.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you've got a, I don't see any reason why not. I often don't do pan cooking on grills just because. Oh, the chicken. Oh yeah. I mean, so the big problem with this chicken is not the problem, but like the thing with this chicken is the breading is pretty solid, but it does want to fall off pretty easily. You know, it's not, as you can see, it comes out pretty easily. So that's why we're baking it, and that's why we're using the rack like that, is because we don't really want to touch the chicken a lot. The breading is really important for flavor, but it doesn't stick like a normal fried chicken breading does. So if you grill it, you're going to end up basically with mayonnaise covered chicken at the end, just because on a grill, you're touching that chicken 3 times probably at minimum. So by the time you're done, you're not going to end up with much. Now, that aside, if you don't care about the crispiness so much, you can definitely just do mayonnaise grilled chicken, which is absolutely delicious. But I wouldn't try and do the panko on a grill. You're going to get some of it, but you're going to lose a lot of it to the grill. Grill is just, the panko is going to stick to the grill much more than it would pretty much anything else. It's definitely a sort of a gentle chicken tender. So you could do that. I think you'd be sad about how much you lost to the grill, but it would certainly work. Like if you didn't have if you didn't have an oven for whatever reason, you know, it's definitely gonna work. It's just not ideal. And then the dips, yeah, the dip recipes, basically it's a ratio more than a recipe. It's a 1/4 cup of mayonnaise to a tablespoon of flavor. If the flavor is not as intense, like with our mustard, I use 2 tablespoons. That's pretty much it. You can permeate that 1,000 different ways based on what you like for flavor, but you can't mess it up if you follow that ratio. The mayonnaise is going to really be the lead. It already tastes good on its own, so anything you put in it is just going to be amplified by that. But you don't want to overpower the mayonnaise, so that's why you use less of your flavoring agent.
And then I had a question. So my family prefers the dark meat, and also thighs are a great cheap option. Would it work if you peeled the skin off the thighs but left the bone in and cooked it that way?
Yeah, you could definitely do this bone in for sure. You're just going to look at a longer roasting temperature. Mm-hmm. Also, you could just do this more like chicken nuggets and take boneless thighs and just cut them into quarters. Cut them into 4s. That usually ends up with like a nice little sort of nugget. That's usually what you end up getting at like a lot of like Chinese food places when you get like the fried chicken it's just thighs cut up. So yeah, you could definitely use thighs cut up. The one thing you're going to run into is there's a lot more fat on the thigh, so it's gonna sort of drip out of your off your pan and into like the bottom of your pan, so it's going to smoke more. So just be careful of that because we're doing a pretty high roast temperature, so it's going to smoke a lot more. Your oven's gonna, when you open it, it's just gonna but yeah, great, absolutely delicious. And you could definitely do a bone in. It's just going to take more time to roast, and make sure you put your thermometer right to the bone so you can check and make sure it's cooked.
Great. Thank you. Is there any more questions? Does anyone have anything else? No, I think that's it. Well, thank you so much, Chris. This was great. And I'm going to send out the recipe as soon as we wrap this up. Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And make sure to check out YouTube, or if any of your friends are like, oh man, that thing I totally missed. It's going to be up on our YouTube sometime next week. And as well as all of the past programs as well. So it's really great. Next month, you will find out about in our newsletter. Ha 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 ha.